Many young people who are charged with crimes may ultimately wind up in our state's detention facilities, the Division of Youth Services, when they perhaps should not. If they had a lawyer at the outset to challenge the charges, to look to see if there was enough evidence against them, to see if there was police overreaching, then many of these children wouldn't wind up in these facilities and then having their first contact with the law, becoming court involved at a very young age. And it just reduces their life chances. Study after study shows that kids who are court involved at young ages, who get pulled into the system, often have a hard time pulling themselves out of the system. There's a well-documented school-to-prison pipeline in this country that is alive and well in this state, and that young kids who are pulled in from wrongdoings at school that when we were kids we weren't charged with or weren't arrested for, suddenly they become known as criminals. They're stigmatized. The National Juvenile Defender Center just completed a study here in the state of Missouri looking at juvenile courts across the state. They came to 3 conclusions under the banner of Justice Rationed, which is the title of the report. And that is, 1, that our juvenile court system is inherently conflicted and potentially unconstitutional in its very structure. It's a court that has a judge at the head of the system with both the prosecutor and the probation staff working for the judge, and it presents a true conflict of interest in many, many ways. Second, it found that our system does not provide the kinds of representation that children need because of funding issues. Even in situations where there were lawyers present, the system as it operates works to try to impede in many ways the work of those lawyers, because it's a system in many ways that is used to doing business in a way that is quite out of date. And so our students, our law students, represent young people in these courts to provide zealous representation, but also to try to raise the bar, to say that business as usual is not good enough, that it's not serving the interests of these children, that their rights are being violated. And so we've been engaging in both zealous representation on behalf of young people and trying to engage in systemic reform for the last 4 years. And this report really validates what we have been up to. It highlighted much of what we had been doing as best practices for the state of Missouri, encouraging stakeholders to try to look to us as leadership in the state, to look to what my students have been doing as lawyers, as the best practices on behalf of young people who are charged with crimes.